Hey horror fans, welcome back to Week in Horror. This week we're covering July 26th through August 1st. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Eugene, and with me always is Alex and JL.
Hey, what's up, guys?
How's it going out there?
Now, we actually have a new Patreon.
Yes, we do. We have a brand new Patreon. Or a brand new patron. I think it's patron. Am I right on that?
Patron.
I think I'm right on that.
Yeah, patron.
We do have a brand new patron.
We have a patron.
Jessica G has joined our patrons. And thank you so much. She's a big fan of the show. She's been really, really active in kind of interacting with us on our YouTube channel. I kind of gotten to know Jessica through the debunking community on YouTube, and she is a huge, huge horror fan. And she has decided to become a member of the Slasher tier. So thank you so much, Jessica G, for joining us.
Thank you, Jessica. We definitely appreciate your support.
Yes, absolutely. And we have something really cool, and I think it's one. I would like to think that we have arrived because we now have a goddamn merchandise tab on the website.
It's there.
We can sell merch.
We're official now.
It's a real thing.
Yes. So if you want to get an official Week in Horror T-shirt with the logo artwork from season 1 fully displayed on your chest like a giant walking advertisement for the show, you can get one via Teespring. We have a merchandise tab. Just hit that tab. Or if you like a little horror in the morning, we have a Week in Horror coffee mug. You can order one of those too. So, and I want to give out a thank you to Johnny O from over at the Plot Hole. He ordered a fucking coffee mug from us.
Nice.
Badass.
It is sweet. So we have already moved some merch. We move merch, motherfuckers.
Less than a year, we're moving it.
And
that is what we do.
and then on top of that, with the new Patreon and new merchandise, I also like to introduce our very special guest for this episode. He's a podcaster with the Horrorphilia Network and a writer for Asian Movie Pulse and runs Don's World of Horror and Exploitation. He's a huge presence in the horror community on social media and a big friend to Week in Horror, the Encyclopedia Horror-tanica, Don Anelli.
Hey, what's going on, folks? Wow, thank you so much for that. It feels great, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It is awesome. Thank you for joining us. I know you've been promoting the show. That is so awesome.
Dude, it is friggin' amazing. Don, ever since Don learned about Week in Horror, Don has been out there, just of his own volition, pushing every Monday through Friday on, via Facebook, social media, and Twitter as well. He has been pushing not only us, but a multitude of podcasts across the board. So every time we drop an episode on Sunday, boom, Monday morning, Don is right there shouting us out, saying, hey, look what we've got going on. Check out, check out our bloodbaths, check out our episodes. And it's just been absolutely amazing. And this dude is just, like I said, the Encyclopedia Horror-tanica. The guy knows probably more than we do combined. We had to have him on the show.
Well, checks in the mail. Thanks for that.
He's so gonna fucking show us up. I swear to God, I'm gonna feel like a giant fucking idiot. You don't know shit, JL.
Go back and start over and do a new podcast.
And next week on Week in Horror, Don Anelli and Eugene and Alex. Fuck!
Next week on Week in Horror, JL takes it. No lube.
We'll be talking horror. I'm just going to get fucking raw dogged over here.
Don't worry, guys. I'm all right.
It is actually, it's really funny because whenever we have special guests come on, we let them know, hey, these are the films we're going to be talking about. A lot of times they have to go and watch them, and they'll put together notes and their own personal like anecdotes for it. Don is the first guest. We're like, these are the films we're going to talk about today. He's like, I've seen them all.
It's like
I'm good.
Yeah,
I got it.
I may refresh myself, but I don't think I need to.
No, actually, I did. I had to do awesome. 2 of them that we're doing. Only because it's been over a decade since I've seen at least one.
Only because you guys are so fucking far behind.
No, only because it's been a decade since I've seen one of the films we're talking about. But ironically, the other three, I've actually seen within the last year, only through
Nice.
other podcasts that I've done. So, not that there was much of an effort to go out, but it was just one of those where, okay, the one film that I haven't covered on a podcast was one that I watched over a decade ago, so I had to revisit it. But yeah, the other three I've actually watched within the last year. So
Nice. I'm actually kind of nervous about this because unlike having because we've had actors and actresses on, we've had people behind the scenes, we've had special effects makeup artists, we've had directors on. This is the first time we've had someone who kind of does what we do on here, and he's so fucking good. I was actually nervous, and I have a feeling I'm going to set myself up for a lot of actually, Dale. And I was like, oh no. But I'm gonna do my very fucking best. I may just let Don talk more than me because he may have more insight into things. I'm
Just
not
let
sure.
him go.
I'm gonna do my best to protect myself. But Don, thank you so much for joining us. It is fucking awesome to have you on Week in Horror. What do you say we get into it, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a whole bunch of badass films to cover tonight. So, JL, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Yes, I will do that. So, fantastic. First film of the night, released July 26, 1972. We have Night of the Lepus. Why are you laughing already, man?
It's so hard not to.
It's just bunnies.
That's the fucking...
Oh, man. Night of the Lepus, directed by William F. Claxton, and screenplay based off on a screenplay by Don Holliday and Gene R. Kearney, based on the novel The Year of the Angry Rabbit. I feel so ridiculous saying that. The Year of the Angry Rabbit by Russell Braddon, and starring Stuart Whitman, Janet Leigh, and Rory Calhoun, and the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Bones, McCoy,
Bones.
DeForest Kelly.
DeForest Kelly. DeForest Kelly was in this bad boy. I kept saying I'm a doctor. I just kept seeing that shit. But anyway, basic plot summary of this one to kind of nutshell it, because this is it's not a widely really known film by a lot of people out there who are kind of horror novices. But in essence, town in the middle of nowhere, mutated giant rabbits come up and start attacking people. And without giving too much away, that's pretty much the rundown of the film. So I'm assuming, Don, that this is one of the ones that you did not have to rewatch.
right, so maybe more. Yeah, I absolutely have a passion for cheesy films. So I was down when I first saw it years ago. The idea is just ludicrous enough, but taken to such an extreme level that you can actually get on board with it. And it takes itself seriously enough to where I actually can buy that this would happen. The central premise, this is just ridiculous as shit.
It so is.
I mean, it's Bunny Babbitt. It's bunnies. I mean, just throw a fucking carrot out there. Just throw a fucking carrot at him. It's not going to kill you. Serious.
That's the fucking crazy thing, is that it's not like, because I know people could think, mutated giant rabbits. People could think like snarling, dripping shit, like Watership Down stuff. Like with the rabbits, like, like fucking monsters, like, like an Easter Bunny horror movie. But no,
Nope.
They're just fucking rabbits.
Just straight up bunnies.
Yeah, they're
Right.
just straight
It's just
up
bunnies.
rabbits. Like that's they're not even like carnivorous.
I mean, half of them I actually wanted to pet them.
There's that one particular shot where they have the camera down and the rabbits are like running at the camera, and they put the shot down low, and it's all close up, so the rabbits look huge in the camera. Bunnies! And I'm sitting there like, these things are fucking adorable.
It's like, I want to pet the bunny, pet the bunny, pet the bunny. It's like, you poor thing, let me snuggle you in my jacket.
I say that the scariest that this film ever really was when Oliver Stone used shots of it in Natural Born Killers, because it's so out of context with the character of Mickey when he's like, it's going through his kind of stream of consciousness, and all of a sudden there's scenes from Night of the Lepus, and I'm like, rabbits, really? Just like jumping around. I was like, okay, it just makes Mickey seem crazier. So I'm like, okay, he's got rabbits on the brain. So that actually made it creepy. But you actually watched this movie, and especially, given, how they made the giant bunnies.
Oh yeah. So obviously it's just with it being giant bunnies. Now they used a couple of techniques. One of the things they did was they actually took and made miniatures. So they made mini fences and mini cars and all the other kind of stuff, and then you show like the rabbits running across it in like slow motion. And you can actually tell, because if you actually look at the ground that they're running on from time to time, you can tell that's like, oh no, that's a close-up shot of the ground, because dirt has a specific size. Like you can't
You can't change the granular size
yeah,
of
you
dirt.
can't.
Dirt can't miniaturize. It's just like fire.
Yeah, it's just like fire or water. And they have a set size, and like that's it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, you really.
yeah, and then to make them, menacing when they attack people, they used ketchup, and then they actually squirted ketchup on their mouths.
I knew you were going to say it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was trying not to laugh, and then you just... That's my bad. I'm sorry. I should have started laughing like that.
He lost it. If you can get jail to lose it, it's a good day.
I mean, okay, honestly,
That's-
honestly, I'm thinking, you have like the killer ants and frogs and all these other ones. They like MGM drew out of a hat, and they clearly lost the drawing. So you got giant ants over there. Ants are at Warner Brothers. I got rabbits. Yeah.
Shit, there's no fucking spiders in it, or no? Kingdom of the Spiders already got them. Sorry. Fuck.
What do we got left?
What
Bunnies?
What about just generalized nature terror? No, that went to frogs, and they've already got Sam Elliott. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it. Sam
We can't-
Elliott
we
takes his shirt
can't- we
off.
can't do
Fuck.
Sam Elliott already closed that one out. But
Well, we
you're-
had bees. We could have gone
Go ahead,
bees,
Don.
but I'm saying we could have had bees, but that went to Michael Caine and the Swarm.
Swarm.
Oh, they must have felt so left out. That is so. The question really is this was based off of a book, and the book was actually a little on the creepy side.
Well,
So
yeah, because you didn't have the actual fucking visual.
You couldn't look
in a
at
fucking
it.
bunny.
Probably couldn't look
When I'm
at
reading
it.
that
Although I
book, I can
dis-
see like you said, snarling nasty rabbits. But
I disagree. I disagree. I mean, I like the concept. The concept of the book is the book was actually set in Australia, where at the time rabbits were an actual issue.
was that before or after the
'cause,
Emu War?
Yeah, I've actually read about that. That's funny. But at the time, rabbits were a real issue, and then issue in Australia, and the government was trying to find ways to kind of eradicate them and get rid of them, or at least reduce their populations. And so, you combine the idea with what if one of the weapons they used kind of mutated them into something else, like something scary, and so you use giant mutant rabbits running amok in Australia. And then the prime minister then uses the terror as a distraction to try and dominate the planet. It's a creepy little book, and it's got some really decent themes in it. But obviously, all of that was lost when making this movie, and obviously, and it's cited as one of the major failures of the film is trying to make the rabbit scene scary, and it doesn't even work when you can't even make, because in some sorts, I know, Eugene, that they actually put people in bunny suits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a few of the attacks. There are a few of the
to simulate
attacks,
the attacks.
especially the mine scenes. I think those are the ones where you can really tell. Because those are the ones where they're actually physically interacting. So I would imagine that would be the case where you would want to have something physical there in the scene. So I would imagine that all of the mine scenes would be where they would use the killer rat, where they would use the man in the suit stuff.
See, and they didn't even go the route of, say, something like Black Sheep, where you could have people in sheep costumes, but you could make the costumes at least be scary looking, or because those are mutant sheep. But in this one, I guess 1972, obviously effects weren't that great, or they really knew that they weren't going to do anything with this movie. So it's a shame that the names that were attached to it, with Janet Leigh and DeForest Kelley and Stuart Whitman, so many, maybe it was part of that, given that you mentioned, Don, that the film actually took itself somewhat seriously, and there are at least a few scant moments in it where you kind of get lost and kind of see what they were trying to do, but ultimately it has achieved cult status.
Yeah, that's you guys are talking about all these terrible things in the movie, but that's what really got it. It's called status, was being just terrible quality movie. You get some of the movies like this, and because this is so old, 1972, but we're looking at it now, and we can sit here and crack up about it. But they were trying to be so serious about it, and you get stuff like The Blob and stuff from way back, and it's so bad. And that's what makes it so good today. We can sit here and talk about it and laugh about it. And, when we can talk about something, 30, 40 years later, it's going to be put into that cult status, that cult following, especially for people like us that just love to sit there and just tear shit apart.
It may have been because The Birds and what was the other one? Willard.
I was going to say Willard.
We're pretty much in the same vein, but they definitely hit their targets a hell of a lot better than Night of the Lepus did. So, given how poorly it did, or how poorly it was constructed in comparison to much better produced films, is probably what led to that. And honestly, I can't remember. Did they not lampoon this thing on MST3K?
I don't remember. They might have. I mean, it's right up their alley.
Because it seems like it would be. That this is something, I mean, given what people have said about it, the most ridiculous horror film ever conceived, it's like shit like that, but it had to have been an MST3K. I'm going to have to look into that. Anybody in the audience, anybody listening, if you know that this was lampooned, that Night of the Lepus was lampooned on MST3K, hit us at weekendhorror@gmail.com.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, and then see, I think now that we're having people going back and looking for these bad films, because bad films are in right now. The people are looking for them ever since you had The Room came out. People are going back and looking. Yeah, people are going back. Manos Hands of Fate, right?
Oh my God.
No one gave two shits about that film when it came out in the late 60s.
I'm Torgo.
That man needs groping lessons. But you know what? I've seen that film 10 times now in the last 3 years.
I'm so sorry.
Why did you do that?
I'm Torgo. I manage the house while the master's away.
Bullets don't affect Manos. They make him slightly out of focus.
Oh, but definitely, we could say that despite it, the very, very sad effort of trying to make cute fluffy bunnies terrifying, this does. You have to admit, it's one of those ones that's so bad you can laugh at it. You can watch it and you can laugh at it and you can kind of enjoy it for the kind of time killer that it is. But for those who dig monster movies, if you really, really, really love monster movies, you can definitely put this out. It goes up there in monsterdom with movie with kind of socially conscious eco horrors like Frogs and The Birds, stuff like that, because it does have some themes in there that were relevant at the time. But that's something that I want to ask the audience, because there's not much to be said about Night of the Lepus because of what it is. I mean, we could spend all night shitting all over this movie, but that's not really what we do at Week in Horror. But the question to the audience is, can rabbits be scary? Is this something that can be done? Well, they obviously failed in Night of the Lepus. Maybe a little bit better planning, maybe a little bit better research. Maybe if they'd hooked up with the author of Watership Down. I don't know, because Watership Down was fucking scary.
Is that a serious question? Can rabbits be scary? Haven't you ever seen Monty Python?
No, I want to know!
Haven't you ever seen Monty Python?
Okay, there you go.
The foul beast. Just look at the bones. I also like to make a shout out to Anya from Buffy because she is terrified of rabbits.
She's scared of rabbits. Yes, thank you. But definitely, let us know. Maybe it's silly. Maybe you, listener, maybe you find rabbits to be scary with their beady eyes and their twitchy noses. Who knows? Maybe you do. Maybe you do find rabbits to be scary. But let us know, weekendhorror@gmail.com.
There is a sitcom.
Oh!
There is a sitcom that I watched a few years ago, and one of the episodes had a character that was afraid of rabbits. And I'm trying to remember who it was. and it's gonna.
It's called leporophobia.
No, I'm trying to remember what the show was because I remember watching a show like 5 or 6 years ago, and there was an episode where one of the characters had a fear of rabbits. And it was, family sitcom shit, and then the daughter brings home the pet rabbit for, like, the class pet, and he ends up getting freaked out by it and causing all sorts of havoc at the house. I'm trying to remember what...
Okay, see, now that sounds familiar. Now they say it's like...
Yeah.
But now I'm just picturing, like, fucking Full House with, like...
It was one of those kinds of... Yeah, it was one of those. I don't think it was Full House, because it was more recent. But I remember reading...
Yeah, no, I feel like that sounds familiar.
Yeah, I remember saying that. I remember seeing an episode where, like, the kid, it was like a family sitcom, the kid brings home the class pet, which is a rabbit. Someone in the house is afraid of rabbits. I want to say it's the father, or maybe the brother, or somebody like that. But somebody in the house is afraid of rabbits, and the rabbit gets loose, and his fear ends up causing all kinds of shenanigans around the house. It kills me. I want to know what that was.
It'll come to you like at the very end of the episode where we're like, thanks everybody for listening.
Oh, wait a second.
Boy Meets World, that's it. Oh, got it. I'm out.
Yeah.
And that happens to me all the time. I'll have something tip of the tongue, and then all of a sudden, like, halfway, we'll be like 3 movies in, and then halfway down, oh god, it was this! And nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about at that point. All right, but that's another for our listeners. If you happen to know what Don is referring to, what show Don is referring to, let us know.
If I don't get it by the end of the episode, let us know.
Or shoot it in the comments below. All
okay,
right,
here,
we're moving off.
This might be way out there. I'm sorry. Was it Superstore?
No, it was a little. The show was older than that because I saw it a few years ago.
Okay.
I saw it like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But the episode was like, it was, I want to say it was an episode from like a series in like the mid-2000s to like 2010 or so.
Okay.
But yeah, it wasn't a recent, like, it wasn't like a recent new episode. It was just an episode I saw on TV one day. But it looked like it was shot maybe 10 years earlier from then, and I saw like 4 or 5 years ago. So I want to say
it was definitely
from like 2005 to like 2010 or something like that. I don't know. But
all right,
yeah,
I better get an email on this one now. Now I want to know.
Yeah,
until we come up with a name that's going to bug me. All right, but let's get off of the scary bunnies. We have something actually scary to get to. I'm sorry, Night of the Lepus. I'm so sorry. I know that there are probably people out there who love this fucking movie, and they just they swear by it.
If you get over the bunnies being silly, I actually am a fan of it.
Fucking catch up.
I know. There's no reason why I should, but I
do. All right. So, Eugene, what do we have up next?
So next we have an actual scary film. It was it was released July 27, 1979, and that is the original Amityville Horror. Directed by Stuart Rosenberg and starring James Brolin, Margaret Kidder, Rod Steger, thank you, Steger, and Murray Hamilton.
You will find, Don, that this is a running gag of this show, that unless the names are in Korean, Eugene has difficulty with it. So.
I don't know why Korean. It's just easy.
Oh well, one of my running gags is being able to pronounce Asian names. So,
hey,
you're in good company, Eugene. There you go.
So, for those of you who haven't seen Amityville Horror, it's basically, in a nutshell, you have a grisly murder takes place inside of this home, and then less than a year later, the Lutz family moves in, and a bunch of supernatural stuff starts happening inside the house. Like, get out! Stuff like that.
That shit's normal for me, man.
Dude, man, I shit you not. This one scared the fuck out of me, because I saw it young. I think I saw it in 83 or 84. This one haunted me. This one stuck with me because I was so young when I saw it. But because it was the first time I'd ever encountered the possibility, or the idea was entrenched in my mind as a youth, about a house, turning against you in that respect. And that, my young mind really couldn't handle that. This one was fucking scary.
Yeah, this one, Supernatural is always scarier because it's always kind of like I'm the kind of person like, well, if you can shoot it and kill it, then you can get like an advantage, but you can't like do that with a supernatural presence inside of a house where windows are going up and down and doors are opening and flies are coming in, and then it just screams at you whenever it wants to.
Stop talking to me.
I'm trying to watch TV. Get out.
No, you get the fuck out, bitch. Fight me.
Go ahead, Don. You were saying?
I haven't said anything yet.
You're good,
Okay. So actually, contrary to popular opinion, I am not a fan of this one. Yeah.
Really?
Okay.
Okay, good. I was hoping somebody else
Yeah.
was gonna say it.
I'm not really a fan of this one. I think it's long. I think it's way too slow. It gets interesting in the final half, but for me, I actually prefer the sequel, part 2.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see that.
Yeah, because they didn't have to rely on the exposition as much.
Well, not only that, but I'm a big fan of incest in films, so having that storyline is a big plus.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
But the other thing for me is that right around the same time I saw this, I saw Burnt Offerings, and I actually liked that one more.
What a combo.
So it wasn't like right after like back-to-back viewings, but it was maybe within like maybe about a month of each other, and I actually liked that one more when I first saw it. They were both. It was like I don't remember which one I saw first, but they were both within like a month of each other, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a haunted house film, and I liked Burnt Offerings more than Amityville. So it was always one of those where it kind of just was like I've never really had like a big urge towards it because it was always one of those. Well, it's okay, but I didn't like it as much as this other film that I saw like right around the same time that was really similar. And it's just always been one of those things that's like nagged at me because it's a good film. I do think that there's merit to it. It's just one of those. I see its flaws a little bit easier than a lot of people do. So it's just never stuck out to me as being as good as being like an important landmark in the genre as it is.
You see, it's interesting that you bring it up because Burnt Offerings was a really, really solid film, and I actually liked that film quite a bit as well. And also given the star talent, because you had Karen Black, you had Oliver Reed, you had Burgess Meredith was in there, Betty Davis. I wouldn't have known them because I'm seeing this maybe at the age of like 15, 16, so it's not like I'm familiar with them. But you just have a score. You have a score of really, really top talented actors in there that can help to tell that story.
I'm more aware of it now, but back then when I first saw it, I wasn't aware of that.
And in respect, and the converse, you had Margot Kidder and you had Josh Brolin, who, at the time where, Margot Kidder was a developing name, Josh Brolin was obviously, he'd been out and people knew who he was. He was a recognizable face. And I can see why Burnt Offerings would resonate more. That one had a much more personal story, and I think it reflected the effects of the house on the individuals a lot better than Amityville did. Because Amityville was more about these people dealing with a house, and whereas Burnt Offerings was more about the effect of the house on the individuals and how it kind of expressed in them, and how the effects on Ben and the effects on Marion, Ben suddenly getting angry out of nowhere, and then Marion just obsessed with the appearance of the house, stuff like that.
Yeah, and the one thing that always got me was that it was the scenes of the house itself actually changing. Like it replenishes the roofs, it replenishes the awnings, and you physically see it like rolling the roof tiles back, and you can physically see like a newer thing underneath. Like that was the stuff that got to me more than like a lot of the stuff going on, because it's the first time I've seen a haunted house film. So it was those shots that I hadn't seen before, and then you get the story about Reed and his son, and you get the reactions that the wife has to the room upstairs. So it was always kind of one of those that just Burnt Offerings to me I liked more when I first saw it, and I saw it around the same time I first saw Amityville. So it's never really been a big film for me that I really really like. And then when I saw the sequel, part 2, I was always a fan of that one more than the original anyway. So yeah, I do give it credit. I do like the final act. I think the final act in Amityville is where this thing really works. And that's really where I give it the most credit, because a lot of the stuff there is, I think, in concept, a lot more terrifying than anything in Burnt Offerings. I find, though, that just the lead up to that is just not impressive enough. After you get past Get Out, after you get past the scene where the priest tries to bless the house and he's attacked by the flies, after those scenes, there's not much in the first hour and a half of the film. And that's kind of where I get bogged down with it whenever I always rewatch it.
That kind of slow burn horror.
Mm-hmm. I think they've really tried.
Kind of slow burn. Say again?
No, go ahead.
I was saying, it's like, because he is right. Don is definitely right that it definitely slow builds through it as things kind of build to a crescendo, and I think that's definitely a stylization difference, given the production companies that were behind it at the time, and you have two different approaches and of kind of telling, not directly similar stories, but both haunted house stories. So. And one rings a little bit better than the other one does. And I do think that Burnt Offerings actually does play better as a film cinematically than Amityville does. But I think what it was that really sold Amity was because 112 Ocean Avenue is an infamous fucking house.
There's a place on Ocean Avenue.
So, given that the Amityville Horror has resulted in probably the longest running franchise of films, I think over 20 films in this franchise. We've talked talked a bit about a few of them.
I think there's one or two. Yeah, I think there's like one or two of them actually coming out within the next 5-6 months.
Yeah,
They're coming out with more.
It keeps producing sequels over and over again. So what we have not talked about are the thoughts on the real events, on the actual occurrences, like what made 112 Ocean Avenue famous.
Right, and what I was going to say when you guys were talking before was, like you said, the cinematic, the way that Burnt Offerings played was definitely a much better cinematic experience, but like when you're trying to play against something that's a true story like this, you're trying to follow the story, it's not always going to come off as like a good play. So like, you said you like Burnt Offerings better, Don, and Jail, whatever. But it's like, it's kind of hard to compare something when you've got, one that you can use all your imagination and creativity on, and then one that you have to follow a story that has already happened, without getting too discredited by going off the rails completely. But like you said, Ocean Avenue, November 13th, 1974. For those of you who don't know, there was a mass murder. 23-year-old Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr. murdered his whole family. His 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and his parents with a .35 Marlin rifle in the middle of the night. And then, like you said earlier, 13 months later, the Lutz family purchased the house because it was stupid cheap. They bought it for like $80,000, and they only lasted 28 days in it because of the super normal.
Even though this was even though this was the 70s, you're looking at $80,000 for I think. Not really. It's oceanfront property is pretty much what it was, and it was it was a massive Dutch colonial, which would have been ridiculously expensive. So yeah, they got it it was a lot of money for the Lutzes at the time, but it was definitely cheap by certain standards. But I think that is what kind of resonated with audiences at the time, is that it was based on actual events, because the events with the DeFeos took place. That shit went down. Eventually, Butch DeFeo started talking about how it was voices that, coming out of the house that made him do it, that drove him to do it. He blamed the house. And then, at the time, that area of Long Island was very tightly knit. And so word spread, the house got a reputation. And then finally, the Lutzes were the ones that picked up and bought the house. And supposedly they only lasted 28 days. before they fled the house, leaving all of their belongings behind to get away from the supernatural elements of it. The possibility does exist, and people have talked about how George Lutz, the father, had bought the house or went after it because he knew what went down there. And then when he went down there to get it because he knew he could get it cheap, but then realizing he was in over his head with the amount of work that the house needed to do, and that with the amount that was necessary to bring it back up and get it back up to livable standards, and how much that they had, and he was totally underwater, and he realized he was way out of his depth. So they concocted the story to get out of their mortgage. So there is that theory. Then there are some people who still adhere to the fact that something really, really evil was in the house. They kind of side with Elaine and the Warrens.
Ed and Lorraine,
No, not related to me. Ed and Lorraine Warren, demonologists, who said that the house itself was a demonic hotspot. And there was something really, really evil living in that place. Elaine, before she died, stated many times that she would never go back into 112 Ocean Avenue. So there's some people that still contend that it was a pretty scary place, which is why it probably resonated with audiences. It captured the national attention and eventually led to this being one of the few horror films that ever achieved like Academy recognition, because it was nominated for I think it was Best Original Score.
Which is something that doesn't happen very often, because according to the Academy they look down on horror as a genre. It's considered a lower genre. And so it is rare for any kind of a horror film to get any recognition at all whatsoever. I think I know Silence of the Lambs, and I think one other horror film are the only two films that ever won Best Picture out of the 90 years of the Academy.
Yeah. But we may be seeing a change to that, because we've talked often on Week in Horror about the kind of rise of intelligent horror. Movies like Get Out, Hereditary, Midsummer, and the things that are coming out here pretty soon. Now that technology has advanced, and that writers who typically wrote in other genres are coming over to horror and writing there as well. And plus, horror is always one of the easiest to get produced, because making audiences afraid is a very, very simple thing. So we may see, I think we're seeing a rise, not really of a new genre, but of a new subgenre, of kind of like, I would say, an ideology in horror of bringing up the standards of your typical horror film, of your mainstream horror films. And I'm really, really enjoying it. So we may actually see more awards. But back in the day, in the 70s, no, that shit did not happen.
Yeah, no, it just didn't happen. It solely focused on dramas and big name casts and everything like that. And with technology and the advent, in fact, we're seeing more horror filmmakers out there. We're seeing more horror films. It's getting better recognition. It's no longer we have the occasional studio horror film, and then you got the B side, the low budget horror film. Now we're actually getting good sized budget, well made horror films that actually have some named cast people in it. So
Don, what did you think? What do you think? Based on a true story, but what are your thoughts on the events that took place?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Well, it makes for a good horror story.
Yeah, I definitely think that the first event, the 74 incident, is definitely something that can be used. But one of those, for me, I've never been a true crime fan, and that's, I think, one of the big stumbling blocks for me getting into stuff like that. I've never been a true crime fan. There's a realness to it that just makes me feel slightly uncomfortable. Film anything, make it as fantastical as you want. Yeah, for me, I actually like the disassociated fantasy elements. Even though you're trying to be as realistic as possible, if there's an aspect to it that makes it imminently filmable, where it's not inherently realistic, but it's just like a fantasy for a film, I have an easier time associating and involving myself in it, rather than something that's just brutal and dark and realistic. If I see a film where somebody grabs a person's head and pops their head like a soda can, I'm a lot more invested in a film like that rather than the retelling of a story involving some serial killer and the way he skinned people and, like I mean, a little further away, but like the Ed Gein story where you would take body parts and, create weapon ornaments and, stuff like that out of it.
Yeah.
Lampshades and
That
shit.
makes,
Mhm.
yeah, that makes me a little bit more uncomfortable. Like it just makes it too real, and I'm not interested in that. I'm a lot more interested in the aspect of film where it's a fictionalized take on everything. So if there's an element of it that makes it feel more cinematic and more like a film, then that gets me interested in a film much more than real events and being realistic. So
I had the same experience with the remake of Maniac.
yeah, that's it's always. I mean that because that was one of the few things that stuck with me when I first saw that, and that's one of the real reasons why I'm not a huge fan of that one either. Don't get me wrong; it's still a good film. Still, I think one of the better remakes. But that's always just been the one defining aspect of the film that kept it down for me was that it just felt too realistic. And even though you want it to be realistic, I prefer just a touch of fantasy that drags it away from being real. Like, I like the fantasy of it a little bit more than the realism. I can be involved with anything.
It's
I can be involved with anything you want, and it can be as realistic as possible. But if there's one aspect to it, one fleeting scene, one individual moment that makes it feel as an aspect for a film, I can be involved in it and I can follow the film along. That's just always been. Maybe it's
see, I like that. That's more of like
no. It's just always been like
Sorry, go ahead.
one of the. I always felt it's just one of the ways that I was brought up, and I don't know if that's just me or the way I approach things or what, but it's just to me that's always been the one thing is I like being able to separate myself from reality and go into this believing that this isn't real, that there's, no harm done to anybody, that, these animals are unharmed, these people are unharmed, they're safe, they're alive, they're, not being brutally killed and tortured and all of these things. The fact that there's a fantasy element and it takes a different dimension away from what's happening. I can get involved in that.
That's awesome because it's just more enjoyable knowing that it's just not that you don't have to think about those other people. You don't have to feel bad about the characters in real life. You can just kind of disassociate everything and enjoy the entertainment. I like that. I like that view on it. It's a very, very humanitarian, but also very it's makes it enjoyable.
I mean, to answer the question, like I said, that's a loaded one because just like the way I feel. And that's always been kind of one of the things that kept me from actually diving into it a lot. Because I do admit, the basic framework of the story is intriguing about the idea of what makes a person want to change their behavior to such a radical point that they're willing to kill their entire family. We've always been taught from kids not to play into those sociopathic feelings and to, develop your empathy and your, the feelings of like towards your family members, but then to make them want to beat and kill them in cold blood, claiming that it was only done through demonic interference. I like that idea, and I think thinking back on it, that's one of the things that I liked about the sequel is that they played into that, and for better or worse, how that film played with it. That's one of the reasons why I got into that one more than the original. So I do find the original aspect of the original events intriguing to a degree, but just in terms of like taking place in our world, in our reality, not within the confines of the Amityville. I'm not really big on diving into the real world aspect of it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that because I know a lot of people like horror movies as you can witness death, but it's like a roller coaster where you can witness it, but there's no harm, no foul.
There's the emotional catharsis.
Yeah, the emotional catharsis of it, where it's like, a roller coaster threatens you with death,
Yeah,
But
I
you
can
don't get
see
hurt.
that. Well, I've never really been a big roller coaster fan.
I hate roller coasters, man.
Well, no, it's just always one of the. Well, no, I was never able to ride them, and then by the time I did, I had never developed any kind of a feel for kid. So being on it just was like an unnatural experience, and I didn't like it.
That sounds like a deep dive.
It's all
for
the jostling. It's all the. Yeah, it just I was never a really tall kid growing up, so I was never tall enough to ride them. And by the time I did, it was always the intense ones. So you're being thrown all over the place, and it was just an uncomfortable experience. I never really developed a feel for it.
Coming
To go down a personal road.
Coming this winter to a theater near you, based on a true story, Doom Coaster.
Next week, we dive deep into Don Anelli's roller coaster ride. How roller coasters affected my movie taste.
Now, given that, do we prefer the original Josh Brolin one or the remake with the one with Ryan Reynolds?
Yes.
I know.
I like it.
You just have a hard on for Ryan Reynolds.
Shut up, dude. My wife listens to this.
I like the remake more. I like the remake more, but I think the original is a better made movie, if that makes sense.
I can see that. Definitely.
Yeah, I can see that.
The remake was definitely, like you said, the remake really took you out of it.
Yeah. The remake is CGI heavy. It's way too effects driven, and it just, oddly enough, it makes me kind of come out of it a little just because it's so over the top. You're not staying in that house for 28 days based on the events of what happened in there. There's no humanly way possible anyone is staying in that house with what happens because they go so overboard with it. But I think because it's a tighter film, it's a lot faster, it's not overblown like the original is, I like it more. But I think the original is a better made movie.
It is. That's a good point, because like the original, it makes you feel like it's months and months. Like you could sit there and watch it and it feels like so much time has passed, and then you read the real story and it's like, oh, it's only 28 days. It's like, what?
It feels like an actual 28 days as you're watching the
it's
film.
like, man, that actually took 28 days to watch.
This movie is taking forever.
But yeah, no, but yeah, that was the one thing with me with the remake was that they go so overboard with it that it just borders on, no, you're not staying in the house with what happens to you for that period of time. After what happened with the babysitter in the closet, you're not staying in the house. There's no way that daughter is staying in that house any amount of time at all. It's just too overblown and it's too over the top, and it doesn't feel like it plays naturally with the story. So there's that aspect to it that just takes me a little bit out of it, but yet because it's a faster film and I like it to watch it more, but I do think that the original is a better movie.
Okay, yeah, I can understand that. And that's actually what I want to ask our audience. Which Amityville Horror do you like? Do you like the original 1979 version, or do you prefer the 2005 Ryan Reynolds remake? And so definitely let us know in the comment section below, or shoot us an email at weekendhorror@gmail.com. And so, Alex, what do we got next?
Hey, let's do a fun one.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to go pretty recent, actually. This one came out July 28th, 2017. The movie It Stains the Sands Red. This movie was directed by Colin Minihan. Stars Brittany Allen, Redinger. I almost pulled a fucking Eugene. Merwin Mondesir. And then you guys, I saw one that really threw me off was Dylan Playfair, because I watched Letterkenny. You can judge me all you fucking want. I don't even care.
What are you talking about? I love that show. No judgment.
Which was hilarious because he made a little appearance. Dude, we'll get into that some other time. And Nico David. This movie follows. There's a zombie apocalypse, which isn't. This throws me off because it really isn't like known until the dude says they're not as bad as they see on the news. It's like, oh crap, there's more of them. But so yeah, in the zombie apocalypse, a woman and a man go off. They're driving through the desert. They're going to meet up with some friends to head off, and the woman loses the man to a zombie, which then the zombie follows her through the desert as she tries to make her way to an airfield to meet up with their friends. And this zombie is just following her nonstop. She's got to, run ahead, stop, runs into all sorts of problems. And by the end of the movie, I was going, what the fuck is going on here? Because honestly, the first time I watched it, I fell asleep pretty much, I want to say about 10-15 minutes after she becomes alone, and then I woke up and she is walking with a zombie and there's a tire around his shoulders dragging a raft, and they're friends. And so it was like, this one was a roller coaster for me. You want to talk about roller coasters? I had no idea what was going on, but then I watched this one again and I understood the story. And like we talked about before jail, off air, Brittany Allen and that performance. I mean, you leave it up to her to take a movie like this and make it fun to watch.
It definitely is. It's a fun movie, and it takes an interesting angle from the zombie apocalypse kind of thing. It really does. I enjoyed it. It had a couple of like, man, that was some messed up parts, like where she when she's stuck on the rock and she's like trying to throw the stick. and then it's like, okay, well, the zombie isn't attracted to the stick at all, and then all of a sudden she like pulls a tampon out and it's like, oh, you want this? And then like throws it.
Oh, let's throw that in there.
Yeah.
That was weird. I don't know.
Okay.
Don, what do you think about this movie? I'm interested.
Okay,
from
one
your
of
point
the
view.
things to know about me is I am an unapologetic zombie aficionado. I absolutely love zombie films. They are easily my favorite subgenre.
Okay, see, I'm right there with you.
There's very little in the genre I don't like. And even with that said, I really love this movie. This is so much fun. I think it's one of the cleverest ideas. It's clever, it's unique. I love the relationship they develop. The idea of her changing away from that spoiled rich party girl into wanting to take care of the zombie and trying to make sure that he doesn't get killed by the final act. I think it's a fantastic arc. There's enough gore to please. It's funny at times. The only area that I have an issue with, I'm not a fan of the finale where she's looking for her daughter, her son. I can't remember. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was a son or a daughter. But I don't like that idea. It feels tacked on, like it was from another film entirely. It's just a different tone from the film that we've been watching beforehand. It feels tacked on to give it a respectable length, almost. And it's just the one area that holds it back for me. But the year it came out, this actually made my top 10 of the year. I think it was number 8 or 9. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I
can definitely see that. It definitely it felt unnecessary to her because we got so much character development from point A to point B that, and we grow to really get in touch with their character, with Nikki, and as it progresses, it's not. I'm sorry, I mixed it up with Nick. Fucking Molly, and then all of a sudden, I get what you're saying about the end part, about tacking on the part about it. It was unnecessary. I felt it because if that was something that was so important, it should have played a bigger role in the rest of the film and been more of a driving force. So it kind of detracted a little bit from the survival aspect of it, and then the growth through adversity that I thought was one of the stronger points of the film.
If you could go there, yeah. See, like what you guys are talking about, that's what threw me off the most too, was this whole kid aspect. And like, I think a lot of it has to do with they've taken this idea. Like, I always thought of the movie Rubber while I was watching this for some reason. And then she's like looking at the tire, and I was like, yeah, seriously, I think this is just, for whatever reason, you're taking this one singular situation, a very hard thing to expand on. You're in the middle of a giant sandbox. you've got a alive character and a undead character, you know, and you're developing this thing. And like you said, you get to a point where they could have, I think they're trying to fill time, but at the same time, there was so much more that they could have done with the whole relationship between them. And then you get to the point where, you know, towards the end act and, you know, the two soldiers, and then that was just over so quick. And it was like, I feel like they could have spent a little bit more time focusing on maybe developing that into the more of the story instead of just running off. And then you get to the end and it's kind of a mess. Honestly, you know, she gets to the airfield, you got this coked out dude, and then you got, you know, I always want to call him by his Letterkenny name, but Robbie in the movie, you know, he's in there for like a second. He's like, yeah, let's go. Cool. All right, bye. And then now she's, okay, well now we have to go off on this whole separate curve. And then the end scene, you know, she swings a shovel and it's like, okay, well, I kind of want to see like what happens with that, but I don't know if I could be invested into that particular part of the story enough to like watch a number 2, you know, like where are they going to go with that now? Now it's going to be a whole different story, you know. I feel like they ended it once at the end or towards the end, and then they just kind of tacked on, you know, 25 minutes of like, hey, we got some extra money.
Well, we got to give. I have to again. I agree with. I got to agree with you on this, Alex. Is that one of the highlights of the film was Brittany Allen, and I've admitted before, I'm a huge Brittany Allen fan. I love the work that she does. She just has a natural, she just has a real natural approach to the characters that she chooses, and I loved the nuance of her personal growth and being obviously being taken out of her element and being put into the worst situation possible and being forced to look at things through a different lens than she's used to, and encountering all the pitfalls of that. And I loved how that was captured. I think Colin Minahan did a really decent job, but then again, the two of them are in a relationship, so there is a kind of shorthand between Brittany and Colin that allows them to work very well together. And so, but to put this girl into this situation, probably the worst situation imaginable, and see, that I think was one of the standout points, despite the film's more obvious failings.
And see, that's what's interesting about this film is when people think of the zombie apocalypse and you have people who prep for it, they always picture, well, they're like home or right by their family, or, oh man, I'm at the house, I can arm up and then go to the pub, have a pint, wait for it to blow over, that kind of thing. But if the zombie apocalypse did say come out of nowhere, you can be in any type of unforgivable situation where the zombie apocalypse happens while you're on a train going to work, while you're on a flight somewhere, where
you'd be on a plane.
Zombies.
Hey, we gotta land, but just so you guys know, there's fucking thousands of flesh-eating zombies outside. So good luck. Thanks for flying Delta.
Good luck. Their current temperature outside is 72 degrees. Thank you for flying with American Airlines.
We are now going to get sued by American Airlines and Delta.
Bring it on.
Well, thank you.
And ironically, you've got films that took place. You got films that took place of both situations. You've got Train to Busan, and you've got Flight of the Dead, Outbreak on a Plane, which I actually kind of like.
Snakes on a Plane.
Films. I said Flight of the Living Dead.
Yes.
No, there's a zombie. There's a zombie.
God, that would be terrible.
But this is something.
Yeah, there's
Flight
a film
of the
called
Dead. I'm gonna make
there's a film called
that later.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
there's
I'm
a film
making
called
note
Flight of the
that.
Dead,
Yeah.
Outbreak on a Plane. It's awesome. It's cheesy as hell. I love it. Oh yeah, it's if you like Exorcism at 60,000.
That's right up my alley. Ooh, all right. But this is where you have her like in a desert, where it's just like she's in a desert, she's not prepared at all, and
That's an understatement. Her lack of underpreparedness.
yes, she has no preparation at all whatsoever.
That's not true. She stuffs all those bottles of water and the bottle of vodka in a bag and the cigarettes.
Well, because the vodka's important.
Trust me, dude. If I'm gonna be walking through the desert chased by one single zombie, I'm gonna be drunk as fuck doing it.
You might as well have a good time. But it is. It's a unique take on it. It is. It's just unique. One zombie, open desert, and just a constant chase.
I dug it. It was like Don said, it was unique. We hadn't seen something similar to this vein, and I can't think of anything good comparable of just simply the one kind of 1v1 scenario in the zombie, because zombies always about the horde. There's always thousands or millions of them, and you're always trying to avoid them at all costs. But it felt very much, it was refreshing in that respect. So the film has so many good things going for it, and so many negative things that occurred to it. It was almost like it didn't know what kind of movie it wanted to be. Initially, it's kind of like, we want to do this, and that's where critics were really, really divided on this one, because the tonal shifts throughout the entirety of the film were, at worst they were disconcerting. At best they were just kind of like disconcerting. At worst they were totally confusing. Which is a shame, because there's so many good things going for the movie, but ultimately it detracts. For me, the jokes, the funny parts weren't really all that funny, and the scare parts weren't really all that scary. It kind of numbed everything out, where I had to rely solely on Brittany Allen's performance, and the direction of Colin Minihan, because of their natural shorthand, the two of them being together. That's what got me. So I was constantly focused on her, which may I'm not going to discount it, may have been the intention, to focus all that effort on or all your attention on Brittany, and kind of just take in the rest kind of secondary.
Which, I mean, there's some directors out there that they are performance driven. They get the best out of the actors in cinematography and a lot of other stuff. Not saying that it's like completely like they don't care about it, but they kind of relinquish some responsibilities of it, or they just focus on the performance. Just like David O. Russell is one of them.
Well, I'm saying, you look at the film itself. The story is essentially a woman is chased through the desert by a unrelenting zombie. That there's beyond it. There's like one or two scenes, but that's an exception. Everything else is driven entirely on what is she going to do to get away from the zombie that's chasing her. And you get the character growth throughout, but it's not like you're completely dependent on knowing that to get into the film. You're just going in based on the premise. But you look at how it unravels, everything is based on her coming to terms with being the better person to get out of it. So it's not as if, you had like the story to get involved in, because there isn't really one. You can't really justify it based on, a lot of the other traditional tropes that you find in zombie films, because there aren't any. You don't have, the group looking to overcome the horde. It's the individual overcoming the one. And I think that's what Jay said, that you don't have the traditional zombie tropes to play off of, because they're not there. I do think it is entirely dependent on how she's going to come out of this as a better person. It just so happens that the motivating factor to do so is a zombie apocalypse.
It's a
I
good
like
take
that.
on
Yeah, I like that.
I'd
I
say-
do. I like
Yeah,
that take.
I like that a lot. I do.
You're talking about the zombie tropes. I gotta put out the one thing, because as you said, Don, you're into zombie films, and like one thing I've watched so many zombie movies and so many zombie TV shows. I'll admit I loved Daisy, and I just watched, what's the other one? Black Summer. And the one thing that really got me in this movie, because like you said, those tropes aren't there, so they can't really fuck it up too bad. But the one thing, she got bit on the finger, she looks at her finger, the virus is spreading, she takes care of that situation. But then later in the film, she takes a power drill, and, all the blood from that goes right into her mouth. And I'm like, okay, well, if, you're contracting this through, bites and fluids and stuff, I'm like, okay, but that would have just fucking killed her right then and there then. So that was the one thing that bothered me, because it was like, they only had one thing that they had to stay away from, because there was only a couple of zombies. They took that one thing and they kind of fucked that up for me, because it was just, from a biological standpoint, not.
Yeah, especially because her immune system would have been weakened already, because it would already had the bite.
Shit, because, yeah.
I mean,
and she just, she lost a ton of blood.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
so
is
it
that,
wasn't much for it to
what I'm
infect.
saying is that you've already had it anyway, because she had the bite to begin with, so her immune system would have already been compromised. Yeah, I can see where you would have some issue with that scene, especially with the dosage that she, for lack of a better term, swallows.
Right, because it was
Yeah.
a small amount of blood.
Yeah, really kind of hard to figure out another term for what happens there, but yeah, if you're looking at it from that standpoint, I do see where you're coming from. I mean, it's like
I think that was
it can be it's like the one
go ahead.
trope that you see that they change around. So I'm not really entirely too gonna hammer it for that. I can see where I see where someone would have a problem with it, and I'm definitely going to agree that that is an issue that is an issue with the film. But it's just one of those where I can see, it being the one factor that's changed. I'm not really going to hold it down too much.
Can just
I got the same kind of sensation off of, and it was a remake as well, off the remake of The Crazies, because I absolutely fucking love that remake. It was amazing, and I thought both a solid take on the idea and a good homage to Romero's work. But there was a scene where Tim and the Elephant is stabbed through the hand, and he is stabbed through the hand by one of the Crazies, and then he pulls his hand up. The blade is still in his hand, and then he stabs one of them in the throat with the knife that's embedded through his hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I understand, and I'm sitting here watching the film, was like, hold on a second. I understand if they avoided catching the Trixie virus because it was in the water, they didn't actually happen to drink the water, didn't get there in time to their house. So I get that they avoided infection that way. So these people have avoided infection all the time, but then all of a sudden he's going to take this nasty-ass blade that is jammed through his hand, then take that same hand, jam it into the throat of an infected, a really, really bad infected.
Just mix it all in there.
And then, kill them because he stabs them in the throat with it, and then draw the knife out of their throat through his hand to free himself. And I was like, okay, come on. That one kind of took me out of it, so I definitely get where you guys are coming from.
Same.
You can't swallow a liter of that shit and not be concerned about yourself.
Well,
That's the huge one I look for.
Especially when you go to like a 28 days where it was just the blood when it hit him in the eye and he got infected, like right off the bat. Just that one drop of blood gets in his eye and boom, that was it. Over. And then you got other people stabbing through their own hand and all this kind of stuff and nothing happens.
I guess being in the zombie genre, it allows you to kind of separate. You can forgive certain things, like maybe that it was only virulent in the bite itself, like it had to be in the saliva. But I mean, if we're gonna look at it through the really super critical lens, you're not gonna be as technically. I can't remember the last time I saw. Well, World War Z was pretty technical in those respects. Where it got as technical in the efficacy of the virus like 28 days later or 28 weeks later, and hopefully the future 28 months later. So
God, I hope so.
I do hope so as well. But for what it was, it had some really solid points. I really kind of dug it. I think Colin Minihan, who was one half of the Vicious Brothers, did a really good job. I always got the feeling after the fact that this was more of a vehicle for Brittany Allen, because the two of them met, because Colin and Brittany met when they were shooting Extraterrestrial, which we talked about a few episodes back, and they've been working together. They do a lot of work together, and so this may have been a vehicle for her. This is a very, very simple script. These are the things that are going to happen. The focus is going to be on her. The story is minimal. Let's, basically run Brittany Allen through the fucking ringer, show that she's a tough-ass chick, and then we'll move on from there. So I always got the kind of feeling for that, but at least I got the feeling, but it wasn't obvious. They didn't just ruin the film saying, look at her, she's amazing, and then we'll move on. So I actually did enjoy the film at parts, although there were some head-scratching moments, kind of like, what are they trying to do here? But ultimately, it was good, because the Vicious Brothers, especially Colin, are really talented directors.
They really are.
Oh, yeah.
Grave Encounters.
Definitely.
Are you kidding me? Grave Encounters 2. Extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
We've gone over a lot of them.
Go ahead, Don.
No, I'm just saying I'm a huge fan of Grave Encounters. I personally have that as like my favorite found footage film of all time. So
I thought they were good, and I hear the rumor is that we're going to get a Grave Encounters 3. The rumor. I haven't been able to get any confirmation on that.
That would be great. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of one. Like I said, it's my favorite found footage film of all time. Two's good as long as you're okay with the idea of the remake the original with a different cast as a sequel kind of a film. Because it plays a lot of the same beats, a lot of the same tropes, and it just feels redundant in certain stages, even though there's individual moments.
Well, I did like the inclusion of the host from the first film,
right?
Bringing him back and seeing his deterioration. I thought I would that kind of surprise was like, holy shit, the fucker's still alive.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are parts of that I do like. It's just one of those where, as long as you get past the idea of it's the same film with a different group, then you can go from there, in a sense. But I'm a huge fan of the original Grave Encounters. I would love a third one.
Definitely, that would be awesome to get one.
I hope so. That'd be fantastic. I mean, you got, and then I think I don't know. Have you guys seen any of the newer The Vicious Brothers films? What Keeps You Alive and Stillborn, or Stillborn?
What Keeps You Alive is awesome, and I saw the day it came out on Netflix. I was just like, because I heard Colin Minihan, I heard Brittany Allen, and I think it was the poster that was most arresting because it was Brittany giving that look, that deer in headlights look, and of course Brittany's always getting fucked up in every movie she does. So it's kind of like, oh shit, and she's getting fucked up, and she's I gotta see this. So
yeah, I like Stillborn a lot. I like Stillborn as well. It's pretty generic, but I've seen worse.
It wasn't. I didn't mind it. It was pretty good. It wasn't like it wasn't a terrible movie. It was pretty. Yeah, good movie.
It's not bad. It's just a demon baby. I felt it was a lot more kind of like Devil's Due in a sense, just not found footage.
That's fair.
Yeah. Good film. Worth a look at least, but one of those where I felt it was kind of redundant in a sense, or not really just redundant, but after. Not really redundant, but it was just more kind of like more of the same kind of thing.
Right. It just brought nothing new.
You watch Grave Encounters.
Yeah, pretty much. Demon Kid. I do like some of the scenes in there. I think there's one scene where she's walking from the bedroom down the stairs, and then there's a noise that she hears off screen, and I think she it's in the later half, and I haven't seen it in a while, and I'm trying to remember it offhand. But she's walking down the stairs, and I think it's right around the time where her husband is coming home, and she ends up encountering him or a doppelganger or something, and she's like hallucinating. And it was one of those. I didn't know where it was going, and it was like a big scene that caught me off guard. But I still prefer Grave Encounters from them. I'd love to check out What Keeps You Alive. Just haven't had time to get to it yet.
Yeah, it's a good one. Definitely give it a look.
And another thing, which is really interesting, and we'll kind of drop this out there because some people might not be aware of it, that Colin Minihan is writing and directing. We'll wait and see with the whole pandemic thing going on, but writing and directing a remake of Urban Legend.
God,
interesting.
That'd be good.
I'd be down.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
I mean, Urban Legend was my favorite of that whole scene anyway, so.
I dug Urban Legend until they tried to convince me that Rebecca Gayheart was capable of all the shit she did in that movie.
Yeah,
that chick could not have done half that shit.
Yeah, that's something that you can probably talk about later because I've got thoughts on that too. Not to.
I was like, look at him chicken arms. That woman can't do
anything. Yeah, not to derail the situation. Yeah, I can go off on that. That's the one thing that I don't like about it. But not to derail the subject, but yeah, I can go on about that.
All right, well, that's something I'd like to ask the audience. We've talked about pretty much all the Vicious Brothers movies I know about. What's your favorite? Because these are definitely these are diamonds. I was gonna say diamonds in the rough, but they're not really that rough. They're definitely out there. If you haven't seen any of the Vicious Brothers movies, go check them out. They have a very unique style, and like you said, Grave Encounters is such a fantastic found footage movie. Absolutely, hands down, probably one of the best found footage movies. And then when I saw we were doing this Vicious Brother, I was looking at found footage movies. I actually just rewatched the Blair Witch Project, which was fun.
Nice.
But let us know. weekinhorror@gmail.com. What's your favorite Vicious Bros movie? J.O., why don't you finish us off with a classic?
I'll finish you off with something classic.
Yeah, I bet you will. Oh shit, we're still recording.
Oh, that's a different podcast. Sorry.
Shit.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday. Fuck, that's Friday. Okay.
Yes, we are going to close this one out with one of albeit this is one of my. I've been so excited to talk about this. One of my absolute favorite films in the horror genre. It is legitimately up there in my top 5 of all horror genres and subgenres put together. Released August 1st, 1986. Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. So I've been so excited to talk about this one. Directed by Tom McLaughlin and written by Tom McLaughlin. Starring Tom Matthews, Jennifer Cook, and David Kagan. And a number of other individuals who gets viciously splattered and slaughtered. The plot pretty much picks up after the events, but kind of the failed events after Friday the 13th Part 5, where Tommy has returned, played by the third actor to play him, and attempts to alleviate his PTSD by destroying Jason Voorhees for good. Because at this point, Jason is dead. So, tracking down his grave, he exhumes him, and lightning, of course, strikes, and as we all know, in the horror genre, lightning makes things evil. Jason revives and has become a supernatural force, and he murders his way straight back to Crystal Lake, which is fucking awesome. I've loved this movie since I first saw it. It sticks with me. I fucking love it to death. Well, what can I say? Don, I mean, you're the man. Give us your take.
Okay, so this was actually the last film in the franchise that I needed to see. I'd seen everything up until this one, until the remake, and then that because that came later. But this was always the elusive one for me, and I want to say it's my favorite of the zombie Jason films. But I'm much more a fan of the realistic Jason. I have such strong respect and affinity for 1, 2, and 4. 3's okay, but I have issues with it. But I have such an affinity for 1, 2, and 4 that as good as this is, and I really like this one, it's just always been one of those where I don't really have much of an urge to go to it. It's not like one of my favorite. It's not like my go-to entry in the series. My go-to entries have always been 2, 4, and ironically Jason X.
No, I can see
Don't
that.
laugh.
Yeah,
You know
Jason
we
X.
fucking love it.
Jason X has always been a personal favorite of mine.
I love Kane. I love Kane Hodder. I fucking love Kane Hodder as Jason. At the 4 films he did, he was the one. The only Friday I love more than 6 is Part 7, because number 1, it was the first one with Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder busted his ass to get that role, and he got it. And the shit he did to prove himself to the director is just out of this world.
Yeah.
Shit like putting live maggots in his mouth in his previous film is just insane. But I love what that Kane brought or gave Jason his voice through his physicality.
Right.
And he was the first one to really emote as Jason, which I really, really loved. And so he went beyond the vicious, unstoppable killing machine. We got a sensation of emotion, and he gave Jason his voice. So I'll always go with 7 before I go to 6, but 6 is very, very close. Simply because, I mean, come on, highest kill count of any. There's gonna highest kill. What?
This is a very.
I gotta
debatable
say
point.
X.
Let's get into this, guys.
I gotta say X. I think X as the series. You've got the sequence where in space where he blows up the space station.
No. Okay. Kill count is individuals confirmed on screen. Deaths that you can see on screen. I see bodies. That's what that is confirmed kill count. The space station.
Okay. I mean, yeah, okay, I've always just lowballed it at 10,000 just based on the size of it. But
God damn.
But yeah, okay. No, I do see where you're coming from if you want to go with the confirmed notion. I'll give it to you on that account, but I still say just based on the personnel required to man a station like that, the size of it is, I would imagine lowballing it like 10, 15,000 minimum. So if you want to go that route, I'll relinquish that one, but I'm still going to reluctantly say X is the most.
Interesting.
All right,
Interesting
so
point. Okay.
So I knew this was going to come up. I knew this kill count thing was going to come up, and I knew there was going to be. So I did some research, and
Okay, uh-oh.
Okay, bring it. Bring
and
it on.
without the space station exploding, even without that exploding, Part 6 had 18 kills, while Jason X actually had, by Jason, I believe it was 30 kills. No, because you could take 2 of those out, so it would have been around 29. I mean, it ends
There
up
weren't that
going
many
up
characters
much
in
higher.
there.
Huh?
There weren't that many characters in that film.
Yeah, there is all the Marines.
Yeah, there's plenty of them in there.
He takes up. Yeah.
You could even if you want to get real technical about it, you could take about 4 of those out of Jason X, because a lot of it had it wasn't like a direct murder. It was like he caused them to do something that ended up, killing them. But you get into it like I guess no, but still, when it comes down to it, you're absolutely right. It ends up being Jason X from my count. I could be completely off. This is just the little bit of research that I've done through it. But there was also other movies that had higher kill counts by Jason. I mean, even Jason Goes to Hell, I think, was higher than that. If you take the deleted scenes into account. But
I wouldn't count the deleted scene stuff. It would have to have been in the original cut. As much as
right. And when I'm talking about Jason Goes to Hell,
I agree with John on this.
You can't do deleted scenes because, what's to stop you from saying, you're shooting scenes 5 years later and then be like, oh, well, these were deleted scenes. I just cut them for pacing. Like,
that's fair.
Yeah.
But see, okay, let's put it this way then. What about off-screen kills? Because like in Jason Goes to Hell, there's 5 or 6 off-screen kills. If we're counting the space station thing too, I mean that obviously would take it over.
I would count it as long as there's direct, ample evidence to note that Jason is the cause. Whether we see, whether we see Jason entering the area where the body is found later, or there's like some visual or audio clue that specifically stamps him as being the cause of it, even though we don't get the payoff, I would count that. If it's just somebody that we just happen to stumble across and then 5 minutes later, oh crap, he's dead.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't really count that. If there was ample enough evidence that you could reasonably, with very little internal logic, figure out that Jason caused it, I would count off screen. So
I could definitely see where that makes sense. So it's really hard because it's like technically Jason Goes to Hell was number 1, and then Freddy vs. Jason was 2, Jason X was 3, if you want to get into like all the super technicals. But you got to also think like, okay, Jason Goes to Hell, he possesses people. Does that count as a kill? If he's possessing somebody and that person kills somebody, does that count? So this is definitely controversial. JL, I could definitely say like the most natural Jason murders somebody in the classic way. That could definitely be counted in there. And then Jason X, does that really, fall into that storyline? So there's a lot to argue about here.
Well, because you can bring a couple things, because the film itself has a kill count, and then you can have Jason's kill count. So if Jason causes one Marine to shoot another Marine without actually like pointing the Marine at her, does that still count? Yeah, it's still kill count for the film, but is that Jason's kill count?
Yeah.
So, okay, I've got a piece of trivia real fast. What movie did Jason not kill anybody in?
1.
That would be 4 because they were all killed by Roy.
1.
Oh, yeah, I was like 1.
Yeah, number 1. Yeah, I guess 4 was Roy too, but
no,
the original number one, the first one. That was my That's what got me into it, was the whole thing and then the twist.
No, you can't really count 5 because remember in Tommy's dream he kills the grave robbers. Jason. Boom.
True.
It's also true.
5. It's not.
Yeah, I mean...
And I think he even misspoke it anyway because he said 4 and not 5. So boom, wrong on 2 accounts.
Yeah, a new beginning.
5. Oh my shit! Fuck. I knew it was gonna fucking happen.
Wrong on 2 accounts.
I gave him a goddamn actually.
Actually.
Yeah, wrong on 2 accounts. Yeah, it's 1.
I like, how about Jason Takes Manhattan? That one's when you're looking it up too, like, because when I was doing the research, it was like 15 kind of, so they couldn't, it's like, it could be 18, it could be 15, it really depends on how you look at the movie.
Yeah, how many of the rest of the class that are actually on the sinking ship?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I gotta jump in here. I was actually doing some research real quick. I was doing some real-time research. So
Real time.
This is an article that was ranking every single film by every single Friday the 13th film by their Jason kills, specifically by their Jason kills.
And that comes down to, I already know what the answer is.
And it has Friday the 13th Part 6 at 18, and it has Jason X at 21 asterisks with an asterisk by it. But that is because, number one, there's no way of knowing how many people died when the Solaris space station exploded.
Right.
And 2, there are times where Jason's actions do not directly kill someone, but cause someone to wind up killing themselves or killing another person.
Right. You've got Janessa when she flies through the hole in the wall. That's not him. But he breaks the wall, and then that causes her to fly through. I can see that.
I don't know. Number 1 on that list, though, Jason Goes to Hell, 25.
No. Hold on a sec. 25, but 10 of those deaths,
they're off
including
screen,
a group of civilians, all happen off screen.
Yeah, and that's why I ask about the off screen
which drops
stuff.
it down to 15.
I mean, you could go into that and be like 22, Freddy versus Jason, but that's also like, how many people did they kill during the cornfield scene?
Yeah, because you have the 2 for sure because he crashes the scene, and then there's at least 4 or 5 that you visibly see where he's slashing their chest open, or he's ramming it through their stomach, or stuff like that, where you can get an idea. But you're not focused on him for the entirety of the sequence, so that's the thing.
No.
And that's kind of like one of the big points that I've always had with that scene is that it's not focused on him, even though he's the cause of it. It's you get 2 or 3 fleeting glimpses of him doing something, but then it's based on them running away, so you kind of don't really get a sense of what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I'll say this. Every one of the films after Part 6, they all have asterisks by them.
Right, because a lot of
Part 6
a lot of them. Yeah, there's a lot of those. I think in what was it? In 8, there's a lot. In 7, I think there's like a couple that are attributed to him, but you can't confirm it.
It's just
okay. Well, you know what? We're going to settle this with the listeners. Listeners, if you agree with me that Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, has the highest official Jason kill count of any Friday the 13th movie, or if you agree with Don that even some of those ones that could be indirectly caused by Jason, if those count in towards it, and so that would make Jason X the ranking champion in Jason kills. Or if you agree with Alex and you're wrong, let us know at weekinhorror.com and weekinhorror@gmail.com. I'd like to know what you guys think, or let us know in the comments.
I'm still here.
But but that aside, I'll get you, Rabbit. You fucking shit. He fucked me up. I knew it was going to happen. I knew this was dangerous. I took a risk, and it is.
I took a calculated risk, but boy, am I bad.
Whew, boy, is my ass red. Anyway.
And I'm not done with it yet.
But one of the cool things... Thank God it's the last movie. But one of the coolest things, one of the things I really love about Friday the 13th Part 6, despite some of the best kills, 6 and 7 have some of the best kills in them, but 6 has the RV scene is just next level. The girl's face in the side, just the camera work on it was fantastic. But one of the best things about it was the self-referential humor and the almost meta kind of awareness that was within the film that you could see definitely inspired other filmmakers. Especially, I think going back and watching it, Part 6, we wouldn't have Scream or the idea to go meta with the slasher genre as much as we did in 1996 without Friday the 13th Part 6 coming out 10 years earlier. I'm not going to say it set the foundation, but I'm saying it opened the door.
Well, I figured at this point, since it came out in 1986, we're already more aware of the tropes of slasher films. There have been so many slasher films that come up before that, and you're starting to see a little bit of dabble of that, because when you have, what was her name? Elizabeth, when Elizabeth and her husband are driving down the car, and she's like, I'm aware of the rules of a horror movie.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, the line, a guy wearing a guy standing in the middle of the road with a hockey mask is never, somebody you want to meet or something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, it's like I've seen enough slasher movies to know a guy standing in the middle of the road with a hockey mask is never a good sign or something. Yeah.
It was something like that.
It's something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so we're actually starting to see a little bit of the people starting to kind of poke at it a little. Obviously, not to the degree. Scream built his whole story on being meta for the slasher genre, but we're starting to see films kind of pick at it a little bit, like a little bit of influence here, a little bit of influence there. The slasher genre has already been around for probably about 10 years at this point. People know the tropes. You can start picking at it, and this is one of the things that the movie does. Now it goes meta in a couple other things when you have like the grave tender like turning towards the camera and like talking. So you're breaking the fourth wall, so you get a little bit of meta there. But just little hints of that Wes Craven builds on.
Well, the thing.
Oh, see, definitely Kevin Williamson definitely took. I mean, you could see that he took some notes on that. This was definitely one of the inspirations. You say, hey, look, we could do this. And I think there were other ones, like April Fool's Day obviously would play into that as well. You can name a number of horror films that would have that would have gone into the inspiration of making Scream. I think at most with the self-referential and there's some very tongue-in-cheek instances, like, come on, when he's killing the paintballers. That is full of that shit.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, what does he do? He slams them into the tree and you get the smiley face.
I fucking love it.
You get the fucking happy face.
Yeah.
Dude, when he rips that dude's arm off, and even Jason's like, holy shit. Did I rip that fucking dude's arm off? I love that the production was willing to do things that because they changed the nature of the killer. They changed the nature of Jason. He's gone from being this, like deformed hillbilly living in the woods who's just, like really, really fucking tough, to they've turned him into a legitimate supernatural entity. He is a revenant back from the dead. And just, but he himself doesn't even really realize it. He's so stupid, he's just kind of like, what? Okay, I'm awake. Okay, kill things. And nobody can stop me. And I love that that the production was willing to go in not really a different direction, but they were willing to try new things, which was fun. It made it more fun, which is why this, was one of the few Friday the 13th to actually get a positive review.
And what's really interesting is the actual original cut of the film had less kills in it, and now when test audience screened it, they wanted more kills, so they added the paintball scene. They added the scene of the married couple in the car. She's like, "Oh well, I've seen horror movies." That was all stuff added later.
Because we want more.
we need
more.
More kills.
So, that brings it down to the audience. So we've asked you guys a number of questions here, but here's another one. It's like, I want to know, do you think Part 6, Jason Lives, is the greatest of the Friday the 13th films? I know this will be hotly contested, and eventually Eugene and I will be over on the plot hole during the Master Debaters series, where we will be debating this out as to what is the greatest of the franchise. But right now we want to know what you think. Do you think 6 is the greatest? Do you think 7 is the greatest? Like I do. I think 7 is the greatest. Maybe you like Jason Takes Manhattan. That friggin' guitar kill was pretty sweet. Or maybe you dig the classic stuff like Don does. You dig the 1 through 4. You like it back when he was human and he was just this unstoppable hillbilly. Let us know. Or maybe the first one, Pamela Voorhees. Maybe you dig that one, the original that started the whole thing. Let us know in the comments or weekinhorror@gmail.com.
And there's certainly nothing wrong with mentioning Jason Goes to Hell or Jason X either. So
absolutely not. They're all a part of it. So real quick, we'll just go around. Don, absolute favorite of the franchise. 2. Alex?
I'd have to go 4.
4? Eugene?
I'm gonna go 6.
7. Oh. Jason versus Carrie.
I'll tell you what. I would like 7 more if it was uncut, because that thing was butchered to shit. And
dude, I
yeah,
agree so.
if 7 was uncut, at least as much as we have an uncut version of 1, I would like it more, because it's just barely on the outskirts of it. It's just like barely. It's like on the outskirts. I actually like 6 a little bit more than 7. But if 7 was uncut, I would put it above 6 for sure.
Nice, dude. I fucking love.
Yeah, 7 is a lot of fun.
The Jason, the design of him after spending all that time in the lake, and he comes out looking. I was like, that is fucking badass.
That's a pony motherfucker.
Fantastic, fucking sweet. Well, that concludes the movies that we're talking about today. That we talk about today on Week in Horror. We do have one special in memoriam that we would like to touch on before we pack it in. Eugene, who do we have?
So we have born July 26, 1928, and he passed away March 7th, 1999. The famous director Stanley Kubrick. And
Mr. Kubrick.
You want to talk about one of the most influential directors of all time, where one film he releases is just better than the next, and is just an incredible. So many filmmakers have been influenced by him. Now, he was not the nicest guy. I mean, you have the infamous Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall in The Shining.
And the 127 takes. And when in Clockwork Orange with Malcolm McDowell, and they're doing the scene where they were robbing that rich couple, and it was something like 109 takes of Malcolm McDowell beating up this couple, and that's actually where the Singing in the Rain came from, because Malcolm McDowell was pissed off at this point and did it to basically like, well, fuck this take, and just starts doing Singing in the Rain while he did it. And Stanley Kubrick, that's it, got it, kind of thing. So, but the thing about him, and you have other directors like James Cameron the same way, these were people that knew exactly what they wanted, and they settled for nothing less. That's why when you have Stanley Kubrick only directed 16 things in his entire life, like period. He partially directed AI also, but he passed away before finishing that. But when you look at its filmography, such as The Shining, Clockwork Orange, 2001 Space Odyssey, Doctor Strangelove, Spartacus, Paths of Glory, The Killing, it's just one hit after another.
He's absolutely amazing. I don't know. I honestly don't know anybody I've worked with in the industry who's not in some way been influenced by Kubrick's work. Just his directing techniques and the things that he brought, the mastery he had of creating a scene, not only through the camera, but he knew balance instinctually and how to draw focus and and it may create an image that is evocative, even in this most simplistic scenes. One scene that rings true for me was 2001: A Space Odyssey, and his use of color in the final moments of the scene was just, it was so, he moved from the stark whites to the stark reds, and we're inching closer to the death of Hal, and it just blows my mind how with something that he saw the simplicity of that and realized what it spoke. I don't know anybody who hasn't been touched by him, who's been influenced him. And I honestly think that his film Barry Lyndon is arguably...
the 74 Barry Lyndon.
I honestly think is an example of a perfect movie.
That one won 4 Oscars.
Yeah.
I legitimately think that right there, and it's so weird because the tales behind that is Kubrick seemed aloof when he was making the film. And... people talked about how he was there, he was involved, but it seemed like filmmaking was something he had mastered and done. It's almost like someone who had learned all the moves in chess and understood them all completely. He understood filmmaking like no one else, and I honestly believe from every aspect, Barry Lyndon is a perfect film. There are no 9s; they are all 10s in that movie, and I wish more people would see it and enjoy it, but. He definitely was an influence in my life. In the things that I've shot, some of his camera angles I have stolen. I have utilized influence, even in my small amounts of work. I've utilized influence from Kubrick. But, individuals like Spielberg, Cameron, you fucking name them, have taken influence from this legendary genius.
Well, he was a director. There's not many directors out there that are as eclectic. Because you could have, Spielberg likes to do action-adventure, and he likes his historical films, and George Lucas likes his sci-fi, Michael Bay likes his action. Most directors stick to one genre, and they just focus on that. But when you have The Shining, horror, then you get sci-fi to comedy, because Doctor Strangelove is a comedy, to another, war movie like Paths of Glory, to historical Spartacus. He is somebody that is able to jump around very easily throughout multiple genres. And we just really don't see that very often. We really don't. And I mean, I know one of my favorite movies growing up was Full Metal Jacket.
Oh God, I was waiting for somebody to bring it up. You're talking about how eclectic he was and how versatile he was. When I was a kid, I saw Full Metal Jacket, which probably should have waited till later in life, but I saw it pretty early, and then I noticed his name on so many other films growing up, all the way to A Clockwork Orange, and then I saw that. I think that was my second Stanley Kubrick movie, was A Clockwork Orange, and then it wasn't later on until I saw Doctor Strangelove, Barry Lyndon, Spartacus. And it was man, why this guy? And that's when I really started researching him. I was like, this guy's name is on freaking everything. These aren't like small movies either. These are all. Full Metal Jacket. That was. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure everybody I know has seen that movie. It's not something you could bring up and nobody would know. What is your major malfunction, Private? It's something that my dad said to me all the time growing up. So yeah, it's incredible, just the range. You've got Eyes Wide Shut, which is a mystery, all the way to Spartacus, another crime movie, to war, to it's incredible the amount of different things. But like you said, he was very intense, and there was a lot of people that he rubbed the wrong way. But he, like you said, has a Cameron complex where he knew what he wanted, got it done, and it turned out fantastic.
Yeah, when you're looking at directors, having one film be as cultural significant as Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket, directors will be happy with that. And this has a list. He has a list of them, and it's
Don. What was your first experience? When did you experience Kubrick first?
Probably The Shining.
Nice.
What a good movie.
No, it's not.
I didn't make that sarcastic enough? No,
I am not a fan. I've seen 3 films in my life. I've seen 3 of his films. I have no interest to discover the rest of his filmography.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we did an episode for my show where we looked at 3 of his movies. We did Clockwork Orange, Shining, and Eyes Wide Shut. I did not care for any of them. I've never been a huge fan of The Shining, for one, and the other films, I don't have any interest in his films.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I can understand with The Shining. There was a lot of division on The Shining, whereas people have applauded it for what it was. But being an adaptation of a Stephen King book, and there was bad blood between Kubrick and King himself. There was.
I wasn't aware of that when I first saw it. It was, to me, I just saw it when it was on TV and it was a horror film. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch that. Because being a horror fan, that was, I want to watch more films, and it was free because I could see it on TV. So I had no knowledge of anything. I just turned it on one day and I was like, well, this sucks.
And it was a divisive film. It really was. And I can understand with A Clockwork Orange, given what you spoke about earlier, as far as like true crime and the notion of horrific things being a little bit on the too real side. I know that the rape scenes were pretty extreme. The whole ultra violence theme throughout, that rang a little too true for a lot of people. As far as Eyes Wide Shut go, I think would have been excellent, but I think Tom Cruise dragged that down. Nicole Kidman was a good fit. She should have been in it. She was absolutely great in it, but I think Tom Cruise and too much focus on Tom Cruise kind of dragged it down. He belongs in a more supporting role, like in Magnolia. He belongs in something like that.
Like
where
in
he shows
Top
up,
Gun?
he does his little supporting gig, and then we get him the fuck out back to his Scientology center. But I really like, but I thought Nicole Kidman was fantastic, and I thought Lily Sobieski was great. I thought Sidney Poitier, oh god, I dropped his last name. It was the lawyer Judy goes and talks to, who tells him about the party. He passed away shortly after the film. His name escapes me. Someone's going to remind me in the comments. But I think Tom Cruise dragged that one down. But his other films, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Full Metal Jacket, Barry Lyndon, if you haven't seen that one, the technical mastery of Barry Lyndon is insane. It is so fantastic. The way he shot his exteriors and his interiors. It's cinematically, the authenticity of what he shot and now of his creation was just amazing. But, it's so much interesting. And the fact that he could jump genres so easily, from horror to mystery to war to true crime it's spellbinding how good the man was.
It really is, because if I was going to show anybody anything in terms of like Stanley Kubrick, I would go Full Metal Jacket, and then I would do Doctor Strangelove, because they are two polar opposite films. Full Metal Jacket's able to capture the process of going from a citizen to basically a killer adapted at war. And the process that boot camp follows, and then them going to Vietnam, that taking place. And then with Doctor Strangelove, the Peter Sellers in that movie is just, he gives a performance of a lifetime, which being Peter Sellers is already awesome to begin with. And just the whole, like, taking something during the Cold War and making it comical, the accidental bombing when the pilot is riding the atomic bomb on the way down with a cowboy hat. Where they're like, well, we need to save the human race. And they're like, well, wait. If we let everybody die, we can actually just rebuild it if we save enough women. And all the politicians are like, interesting.
It's so absolutely tongue in cheek, and I thought Doctor Strangelove was his snarkiest film, because you could see his kind of natural iconoclastic nature coming through in that, and just how he viewed bureaucracy and the government, and just the kind of highfalutin inadequacies of and buying into your own shit. You can spread across the entire film. I think that I would actually say that Doctor Strangelove was probably his most personal film. I just got hallmarks of just Kubrick. Oh, like, this is what I think of this. This is what I think of this.
and it definitely it came across. But he's a huge deal. Stanley Kubrick still influences filmmakers today. Just amazing filmography of what he's put up with. So, Stanley Kubrick, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Stanley. We miss you.
Sleep easy, bud.
But we have your filmography, and hopefully we'll get Don to watch more of your movies.
We're gonna try.
Like, no, I don't think you will. I don't think I will. Well, either way, huge thanks to horror master Don Anelli for joining us this week. Don, is there anything else you'd like to plug?
Okay, so, there's a few things. I'll try to be quick about this. I have 3 shows. One's inactive. The other 2 are still active. The inactive one is called the Horror Mafia Podcast. It's me, 2 other guys, and a girl. The guys is that it's a mafia sit down because we're all Italian. We all have Italian last names, so we came up with the guys of like mafia dons coming together, shooting the shit, talking about movies and stuff. And we all came up with nicknames, which is where my Discord's name comes from, Donnie Rings. That was the name I adapted on the show. Nice. So, yeah, that's where that comes from. If you guys were wondering what that thing was on the bottom, what my name meant, there you go. That is inactive right now. We have 90 episodes up on the Horophilia feeds. Now, I don't know if they're recent enough to still be on the feed in iTunes, because there's a feed for the network, because Horophilia is a network. There's like maybe 15 shows or something like that, where we're all part of like a network, like a home or whatever. Like we're all like interact with each other. We all like guest on each other's shows and stuff. And, Horror Mafia was one of them. I don't know if we've been active enough for the feed, for the shows to be on the feed, so you have to go to the physical horophilia.com site to find them. Or you have I think the physical feed is still there, because Horophilia, you have a specific feed for your show, and then each of the shows are conglomerated into one massive individual feed. So if you didn't want to have, 15 shows clogging up your iTunes thing, you could, subscribe to the one feed and then get all of them at once. So there's 2 ways to get that show. The one that I'm on now is called Bay of Blood. That one is kind of sporadic, because one of the hosts is involved in the medical community. And I don't need to tell you what's going on in the real world to tell you that that's going to impact those kinds of people heavily. So we're basically on the sense of, hey, I've got something, you want to record in 30 minutes, be on Skype or something. Like, that's pretty much where we are. Although we have several shows we just released. We did a massive 2-part look at Jaws ripoffs, where we invited a bunch of guest hosts on, and we all discussed various Jaws ripoffs. We've done commentary tracks for films like Hellraiser and
I gotta ask. In the Jaws ripoffs, did Prophecy come up in that?
No, we wanted sea-based creatures.
Oh, sea-based. Okay, cool. Okay,
yeah,
just curious.
That was one of the things we brought up when we were planning it, but eventually we decided there would be too many films, so we kept it strictly to aquatic creatures. So orca, piranha, tentacles, alligator, killer crocodile, the Italian killer shark movies. So, that's where that one was. Although, we've also done commentaries for like Texas Chainsaw, Hellraiser, Pieces. There's a couple of other shows here and there. But like I said, it's kind of a touch and go thing at the moment, just because of we're honoring our host and his dedication to the community. So, we'll pop up every now and then, but we're not like a super active one. And then the other one that I have is a show called Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space.
That title's an adventure in of
Sweet.
itself.
Yeah. So that one's not a horror podcast. The second word in there is the clue. It's kaiju film. So Godzilla, Gamera, all kinds of giant monster stuff like that. So we alternate. We do one episode with Godzilla. We do one episode where we'll look at another similar giant monster movie. So we've done stuff like Gorgo. We've done we did for Halloween one year. We did the sci-fi film called The H-Man about amorphous blobs. And then like I said, we do Godzilla every other movie. And then we also have a special segment where we look at an Ultraman episode every show. So we do a movie and then an Ultraman episode, and then the movie rotates depending on what episode we're on. So this one here is really tricky. So I'll try to be as clear about this as possible. If not, I'll tag me in the comments and I'll let you know. So we're not considered an official show. We're considered a sidecast for another podcast. And one of the hosts of this show called Kill the Cast, he hosts the show. And, I'm considered a co-host on there. So we're under his feed. So you want to subscribe to the Kill the Cast feed, or you want to subscribe to the Legion podcast feed. And Legion is just like Horrorphilia. It's another group or community of podcasts that come together, and they all have their own shows. And if you Kill the Cast is on Legion, is affiliated with Legion. So if you subscribe to Legion, you would get Kill the Cast with 10 or 15 other shows as well. So, but there's the thing is that there's no dedicated feed to this show. You have to do Kill the Cast or Legion to find it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then so the other thing would be writing. Like I said at the beginning, I write for Asian Movie Pulse, which is a website that it's geared towards Asian cinema of all types. So it's not specifically horror. You'll get Korean dramas and Chinese comedies and Hindi, Bollywood musicals, all kinds of stuff. As long as it follows in the Asian realm, then it's considered coverable on the site. Although the thing is that I'm the primary horror writer on the site, because I'm the only one that actually watches them. 99 times out of 100, if the site covers a horror film, it's me. Unless there's some country embargo or something like that, because I'm the only one in America. Everybody else is in Europe, so if there's country lock screeners, then they take it, but anything else, I'm the one that writes for it. So if there's horror on the site, it's usually mine. And then the other website is Don's World of Horror and Exploitation, which is, that's obvious. It's my personal website. I cover horror around the world. I do reviews pretty much on a daily basis. I usually have something up that I put on there, whether it be reviews, interviews. I'll throw in a article or something just to balance everything out, so it's not just predominantly a new review in your feed. But it's my own personal site. You can find it on Facebook as Don's Horror World, or you can find it online at donshorrorworld.blogspot.com. And then, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Just search for me. I go by my name, so pretty easy to find on those accounts. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely check that. We'll definitely check out that stuff, like Kill the Cast. the Legion podcast and the Asian Movie Pulse and Don's World of Horror. And obviously, Don Anelli, it has been a pleasure having you on our show. Thank you so much. We had some nice debates with some kill count numbers, which we knew was going to happen.
I got taken to school. I will accept that. I knew it was going to happen. I fucking knew I was slitting my own throat.
Hey,
doing this, but I will accept
hey,
it.
if it's any consolation, you lasted until the fourth movie. Most people would have fucked up before then. So
awesome. I will fucking take it. I will take that very small W.
And so thank you so much. And I'd like to thank our listeners. Visit our website, weekendhorror.net. That way you can catch up on some past episodes. You can check out some bios. And not to mention, we now have some merch. So check it out. We got some t-shirts. We got some coffee mugs over there. Another way that you can support us, like us, we appreciate all the support we can get. You can also email us at weekendhorror@gmail.com. We love feedbacks, comments, questions. If you have an argument on the highest kill count in the Jason series, we're definitely going to be looking out for those emails. So
this shit is going to be
yes.
on.
That way, next episode, we can be like, okay, according to our fans on who emailed us, this has the highest kill count. So definitely email us. And then if you like our podcast, check out our Patreon. You go to patreon.com/weekendhorror. Right, you get early access to our Bloodbath and our After Dark. So our Bloodbath, where we take our horror expertise and then have two horror icon villains fight each other to the death. And then we have our After Dark, where we sit around for a little bit and just discuss the state of the horror genre and past works that they've done, which we're about to record a little bit after we get done with this. So check out, you get early access to all of those. We have a couple of different tiers on Patreon, even start off with just our $1 amount. So that's it, just $1, less than a cup of coffee a day. You can support your local podcaster. On top of that, we also have our Facebook and Twitter, where we post our daily splatters. You get a little bit of horror knowledge every single day. What better way to start the day off with just a little bit of horror trivia right off the bat? So check those out on Facebook and Twitter. And then also on top of that, we have our YouTube channel, which we post our videos on there. So check out our YouTube channel. As always, we're also on iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spotify, any location where you can listen to podcasts. So thank you so much.
I'm Alex.
Sorry. We're all looking at you. Okay, dude. Sorry about that. I'm JL.
I'm Eugene.
We'll see you next week, and as always, stay scared.
You suck so much.
Try not to fucking laugh over here, guys.
That was right.